Death Valley here in the capital city of Baton Rouge, Louisiana. I'm your host, Michael Poggi, alongside my wonderful co-worker here, William Gilruth, man, how we doing? And of course, Tiger TV's own Kai Hamilton. We got another big one. We're back here in Tiger Stadium. How we doing on this beautiful Friday, guys?
I'm feeling great today. LSU basketball, they won the girls 148-46. So we know one team might be able to get an Natty this year.
I'm feeling good, man. Great weather. Finally feels like fall. Looking forward to this game tomorrow night.
Yeah, it's going to be a good one, man. We got a lot to talk about. So we are finally back here in Death Valley as LSU is coming off a 31-24 loss to Vanderbilt last week, dropping to 5-2 on the year, obviously. So, and obviously also dropped to number 20 in the AP poll rankings for this week. Tigers have a new test though this week, tomorrow, welcoming in number 3 Texas A&M. For a top 20 matchup here in Baton Rouge. So LSU looking to bounce back from last week. They're officially in win-out mode. Can't lose anymore if you're the LSU Fighting Tigers, as well as looking for some revenge from last year against Texas A&M. This is a team that does not beat you in this building. They have not been able to since the 80s, and they are looking to continue that streak this year. So, it was a disaster last year against A&M, and let's talk about how the LSU offense can kind of make that not a disaster tomorrow night. LSU coming off a week where the offense was not the worst thing you saw on the field, especially from a starting quarterback standpoint. Running the ball still an issue here and there. But there were main struggles on the offensive line, and that's what we're going to touch on here today. Texas A&M brings in a defense that just gave up 42 points to Arkansas and also did not have the best week. So this is a defense, though, that has forced 7 fumbles, though, 4 recovered and 2 interceptions on the year. So what's the key for this offense early to get the scoring going?
Well, this is an Aggies defense that they're physical, they're strong, and they're good. This is a talented team. They force turnovers, but like you mentioned, they also give up points. So if you're LSU, you have to find a way to score. I mean, in this game, you've got to get into the 30s, in my opinion. One way to put yourself in the position to do that is scoring early. We saw last week was the first time LSU scored on the first drive of the opening drive of the game this season. If they can continue that, that would be huge. The other thing, and this has killed them all year, when you get into the red zone, they need 6, not 3. When they get into a first and goal situation, you should be scoring touchdowns, not settling for field goals. If they can do those things, then they have a chance to pull off the upset. But if it's the typical LSU offense where they get in a first and goal at the 3-yard line and they go 3 and out, or not 3 and out, but they get stopped, have to kick a field goal, it's going to be a long night.
Yeah, the red zone's very important.
Yeah, and Travis Green did confirm that in practice they're going to work on their efficiency and their ball security because that's the biggest thing. But finishing in the red zone has been a challenge for the Tigers. So they have to figure out how they can finish in the red zone and then, keep the ball going. We saw them drop it right at the...
Right, lots of drops.
So we want to work on that. That's the biggest key.
Yeah, I agree with both of you. I think for this offense, my biggest key last week was the offensive line. I think, once again, this offensive line needs to be sharp, especially on the tackles positions. They've got Kern coming in as a replacement, playing that tackle spot. So the right and left tackle spot really needs to be sharp tomorrow night. The sacks need to be left alone. There's sacks all over the place. We're going to get into that in a second. But most importantly, I think scoring in the red zone is going to be crucial. The 3 points have to stop. This isn't a team where you're going to be able to score 20 points and win the game. This is a team that, even though your defense is very good, they are going to be able to put points up. So you have to, rebuttal and score your own points. 7 points almost every drive is kind of what the goal should be. Obviously, you're not going to be able to score every drive, but you have to be able to move the ball down the field. The running game needs to be better, obviously speaking. There were a couple runs last week that you saw, especially the one from Caden Durham, the 56-yard run. But you need more of that. You need more of those 6-yard rushes instead of just the one breakoff. You would love a breakoff here and there, but you want those tiny little, 4-yard rushes, 6-yard rushes that are making those 2nd and 6, 2nd and, 4, make that job for Garrett Nussmeier on the offense, especially Joe Sloan upstairs, a lot easier.
Yeah, but if you look at it from the Joe Sloan coaching standpoint, he said they have to block more. And I agree, because I feel like when it comes to our offensive linemen, they're a little bit weak.
Yes.
They're not playing how our defense playing. So when are we going to see them get more aggressive in that they're not just being played in the field, but they're playing the game?
And the scary thing is fixing your offensive line. That's not really something you're able to do mid-season. That's an off-season adjustment. That's what the guys you're bringing in, how you're developing their bodies. There are minor things you can do in practice. You can switch up the scheme a little bit. But overall, that's an adjustment that has to happen in the off-season. And you're not going to see a big jump week to week.
And I agree completely. Let's move on a little bit. Let's move towards this Texas A&M defense a little more. Senior D-end Cassius Howell has 8 sacks on the year, going up against an offensive line, like we just mentioned, that has struggled, especially at that tackle position. What is crucial for this offensive line? We talked about aggressiveness. We talk about being, strong, because they're not really blocking as much. They're not being as aggressive as this coaching staff and LSU fan base would want. What is crucial for this offensive line to give the RBs and quarterbacks, Garrett Nussmeier, a chance against the talented defensive line? Yes, they allowed a lot of points, but at the end of the day, this team can get to you if you allow them to.
It's about knowing your team that you're playing against. You have to know the players. You have to know what they're going to do. If you know you're coming in a game where your team is stacked, then you want to prepare for it. You want to make sure that everyone has to be where they're supposed to be.
Right.
Everyone is communicating. We really want to close the gaps. We want to tighten it. We want to look at who's coming out. We want to look at our corners. We want to look at everyone so that, yes, Nuss has the extra time to do what he needs to do, but I feel like from his standpoint, we kind of know what he's going to do. If you know that he's going to be slow on the drive, you can see that he's going to be slow. Like he kind of, how do I say this? He predicts what he's going to do before he does it.
He makes his mind up before they even snap the ball.
Right.
Yes.
For me, the biggest thing is winning the battle up front, like you mentioned last week. And, without Tyree Adams, that's going to be a very big challenge. I like them.
For a while.
He is 4 to 5 weeks, I believe.
Yes.
They're going to start Carius Kern at tackle this week. I like that move. I think he'll give you a little bit more than DJ Chester could. Just overall, it's going to be a learning curve right there. He might not come out of the gates and be like Will Campbell or Tyree Adams, but I think when he's played this season, he has showed that he can hold that position down. He can give you what you need from that. The biggest key for LSU's offense is they got to get the ball out early. They have to.
You're not going to have enough time.
But you're not going to have
But see,
you
that's
can't
what
hold the
the
ball
block
for.
is too.
But this is a very physical A&M front, and it's like you mentioned, it's a weak offensive line. They're not going to have the time they need to take that deep shot to Chris Hilton or whoever they want to take it to. So
yeah, it's going to be more a little bit like last week.
Yep.
You saw how Garrett Nussmeier really only had 2 seconds to throw the ball, and honestly, in my opinion, he performed very well.
Oh yeah,
Under all that
you can see the
pressure.
difference.
Yeah, exactly. Under all that pressure, only having a second and a half, 2 seconds to get that ball out. It's going to have to be more like that. It's going to be quick throws. I would like to see this offense kind of stay away from the screen passes if they can. I understand that that's a way that they can kind of add on to their run game a little bit more. But maybe go back to the Xavion Thomas run plays. Maybe go back to something like that where you're able to get an extra blocker, get something like to give you a little bit of help against a very, very talented front that this SEC team in Texas A&M brings. Because when you play in the SEC, you're going to go against talented fronts week in and week out, and this is going to be one of the best. But yes, getting the ball out and just establishing a little bit of a run game. And it's going to come down to those tackles. It's going to come down to the interior linemen. I thought Braylon Moore's been playing really well.
Absolutely.
But at the end of the day, the center position can only do so much. So a lot of help from this outside line is going to be crucial for LSU to have success in the run and pass game tomorrow. So who on in this offense needs to have a key performance in order for LSU to have success, maybe pull off the upset in this big-time top 20 matchup?
I have Caden Durham. I think you're going to need to run the football tomorrow. He showed signs of what we saw last year. He's an explosive running back. Either Caden Durham or Harlem Berry, whichever one they want to give the rock to, they are the key in this game tomorrow for LSU.
I agree. Caden Durham, he's great at slowing down the pass rush. He's efficient. He's fast. He's going to have to be patient for sure this game, but I think he's the guy for it.
Look, we've seen this year that LSU loves to go with the guy that has been doing the majority of the work during that particular game. They kind of like to hand that ball off to the hot hand. When Harlem Berry had success early in the Vanderbilt game last week, we saw them kind of keep giving that ball to Harlem Berry. When stuff started to not work as much, that's when you saw Durham go back into the game and get his rhythm. What I would like to see is allow your players to get that rhythm. Allow your running backs to kind of get involved into the game. Allow your receivers to get themselves involved into the game. Allow, get your guys the targets. Get Xavier on a couple targets. Get Barry on a couple targets early. You got to get them early. Get them warmed up into the game. And if that does happen, I do think we see another big game out of Xavier Thomas. I think Xavier Thomas is going to be able to get across that defensive back room from Texas A&M over the middle. I think has a very opportunity to be wide open. We saw that last year where that middle of the field against A&M was how you were able to score points. We saw that with the long play to Aaron Anderson last year. We saw a couple throws to Aaron Anderson last year over the middle of the field against this Texas A&M team. I think you're going to need to see more of that, and I think Xavier Thomas is going to be your guy for this game. In the wide receiver area of the field, you obviously, Barryon Brown dropping that ball on that third down against Vanderbilt last week, you can't have that. Right. You have to, especially in a game where there's not going to be a lot of time for your quarterback, you know what you have. You know what you have on this offensive line. You've played enough games to understand what you have on your team. Brian Kelly's made it very clear. We have who we have. And that's what you have to work with. And so I think getting that ball out quick, making sure you're able to find your playmakers, that's going to win you this football game, or at least giving you a chance. So let's talk about some more serious things. What needs to change with this play calling standpoint from Joe Sloan and Brian Kelly in this offense?
I think it's too scripted. If you look at football, there's 11 guys on the field. Some guys are protecting the ball, some guys are passing the ball, some guys are throwing the ball. So why aren't you putting out your best players on the field who can do these things? It's more so like when they think about the game, they think about, okay, we know this guy can do this, but he may or may not be able to do it, but we're still going to run him anyway. When you still have a full line of benchmen who can do absolutely incredible things. So I think the play calling comes down to, why are they not putting people in the game who can actually do things or giving them the opportunity to do things? Because we don't know what they can do yet. Right.
Well, I think that's a great point. The personnel at times has been a little confusing. Last week when they had Donovan Green out there, it ended up biting you in the butt. But for me, I think they just need to stop being so predictable. I think everyone in the country knows what LSU is going to do. They're going to run RPOs. Garrett Nussmeier's not going to run the ball when they run a read option. It's a very predictable offense, and that has hurt them this year. I also think what you brought up earlier was a great point. They need to allow their playmakers to get into the rhythm. Right. I mean, I think Nussmeier got into a bit of a rhythm last week. He got into a bit of a rhythm against South Carolina when they were throwing the ball to Trey'Dez Green or Xavier Thomas, or they were just getting the ball to the guys he wanted to throw it to. They weren't trying to force him to throw it to 12 different guys. Now, you can't throw it to the same guy every play, but if that's his favorite target, drop a route for him to get open.
And that's kind of where I'm. I think it's very crucial that you do get your guys in a rhythm, but also I think spreading the ball around is also a very important thing in this game. I think you're going to have to be able to find 5 different guys with 3+ targets in the throwing game. I think that can allow you to be very successful. Keeping the defense on their toes, moving that ball around, whether that's, short slants or kind of, over the middle like I mentioned, or, just running the ball. But I think specifically, stick to your game plan. you don't need to, if you're going to change stuff up and you're going to make things a little bit different, you don't need to do the little trick plays with the 3 offensive linemen and then almost throw an interception. That's stuff that can't happen in a game like this. I think in a game like this, you need to stick with what you know is going to work. And if stuff starts not working, that's when you open up the playbook and you start getting into that trickery. You start getting into kind of things that can throw this defense off a little bit. But I genuinely think that if you're just able to stick to your game plan and stick to what you know, obviously, just move the ball upfield and you're going to have a good time on this offensive front. So who scores tomorrow for the Tigers before we move to the defensive end?
It's probably going to be Aaron Anderson, Davian Thomas, or Barian Brown. Those are the people who really finish the job and do what they have to do.
Yep.
Yeah, I think Caden Durham can punch in a touchdown
pick.
And then I also think Trez Green, if they can get him open in the red zone on a fade or whatever, throw it his way.
Yeah, I think we're going to see a game where Trez Green gets a lot more eyes on him.
Oh, yeah.
I think this is a game where you might finally see that double team.
Right.
You're not going to get a lot of options of him one-on-one, especially in the red zone. Teams are definitely going to start catching on with that. So I think we might see a Bauer Sharp touchdown tomorrow. I think that is something that is very possible. I think you get into the red zone. Bauer Sharp has been more of a blocker for this team, but you get him off. You get him off in a little drag route, and you're able to dump it off to him, and I think he finds the end zone. I think he's going to be a little bit underwatched tomorrow, and I think that allows the Tigers to get Bauer Sharp into the end zone for LSU. So now let's move on to this A&M offense, who is very electric. Scored 45 points last week against an LSU defense that gave up 31 points against a team with a very talented dual-threat quarterback and good play from the wideouts as well on third downs. So Marcel Reed brings in that same type of talent into Baton Rouge tomorrow night. And Marcel Reed, obviously, let's get down at his stats a little bit. Thrown for 1,770 yards this season with 15 touchdowns, and only has thrown 4 interceptions. And he can also run the ball. He has run for 241 yards on 51 carries with 4 touchdowns this season, so he can move if need be. With key player weeks most likely out once again, where does LSU need to be successful to be able to, make Reed's night more difficult?
Well, the interior is very soft, and because Reed is that dual threat quarterback that LSU has had an issue with the last 2 games, we have to step it up somewhere. They have to trust their quarterbacks. I mean, you have guys like DJ Pickett, you have Mansfield Lane, you have the corners. Let them do their thing. Let them work. Let them see who can come in and stop those drives.
Yeah, well, this has been Blake Baker's kryptonite. This has been Brian Kelly's kryptonite. This has been LSU's kryptonite. Mobile quarterbacks. I think a key is your safeties. Because if Marcel Reed's going to run it up the middle, A.J. Halsey and Tamarcus Cooler, they have to be up there to make that touchdown-saving tackle. If A&M's able to hit the third level. With that being said, a way to stop them is if you can get Bernard Gooden back on the interior defensive line. That is a huge addition for LSU tomorrow. If Bernard Gooden can go, and he's close to 100%, he's listed as probable right now, but if he plays, that is a big win for LSU.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think that, yes, you talked about Bernard Gooden. You need your guys to step up, but yes, that interior line needs to be there. The interior line needs to get to the quarterback. But we've talked about this every time LSU plays against a dual threat quarterback. If you're going to blitz with the purpose.
Right.
Blitz with the purpose. Blitz with, okay, I'm going to keep him contained. I'm not going to let him roll out to the left. I'm not going to let him roll out to the right and create havoc where they can do. You saw last year Marcel Reed came into the game and completely turned the game around for Texas A&M with his legs, and it was just something that LSU was not prepared for. I think in a game where they have prepared for Marcel Reed, they are going to be able to know where they need to be on these defensive schemes. I think whether that's pushing him out to the left, everybody needs to be going out to the left. If your defensive line is pushing him out one way, you need your West Weeks, your Harold Perkins right there, and at the end of the day, you have to make the tackle when it presents yourself. We saw Jack Pyburn miss a couple tackles last week. We saw Harold Perkins miss a couple tackles last week, and that can't happen in this game. You do have the benefit of having 100,000 fans behind you screaming at the top of their lungs, so that is going to help. At the end of the day, that is very much going to help. You're going up against a team, like I said earlier, that has not beat you in this house since the 80s. So in a sense, you technically own them in this building.
Yes.
And so you need to kind of establish that dominance, and it's going to come from this defensive front. I think the front seven on both sides is going to be very crucial for this game. And the DBs are going to do the DBs things. I mean, you got Mansour Delane back there. You have A.J. Halsey. You have one of the best secondaries in the country, in my opinion, with how much talent you have on the field. So I just think that it's going to come down to if you're able to stop Marcel Reed. So Marcel Reed only throwing 4 interceptions against a defense who loves to pick the ball off. Do we see an interception tomorrow night? And who is it?
Well, last week they didn't get one, and that's where it hurt him. This is an A&M team that they protect the football. Marcel Reed protects the football. He makes good decisions.
Yes.
Now, if they blitz with a purpose, like you said, and they can frustrate him and fluster him and confuse him, and he throws a 50-50 ball, that's where I trust our playmakers to go make those plays. The question is, will they put Marcel Reed in the situation where he will turn the ball over, where he will make a bad pass? I'm not confident that they will. I think Marcel Reed again will protect the football tomorrow night. I think they'll do a good job of confusing him, but I don't think he'll turn the ball over, and I think that'll really hurt LSU.
I agree, but if there is a turnover, it's going to be from one of our safeties because he's going to end up throwing it too far or too deep, and one of our safeties might be able to get that interception, but it's all about how good the defense plays up front.
I'm going to disagree with you, Will. I think that we are going to see an interception tomorrow night. I think that is obviously Marcel Reed is pretty good at holding on to that football. If it is an interception, we might see a fumble or something like that. But I do think Mansour Delane gets tested, and he proves them wrong. I think this is going to be one of those games where it's going to be players trying to make names for themselves. It's going to be trying to win the football game with the best players that they have. And I think they're going to try and test that dude over on Mansour Island, and that dude's going to drown. That's just what I think. I think Mansour Delane is the best cornerback in the league. Yeah, and I think that he is going to have to come out and get a stop with an interception and kind of just flip this game around. I think that's a key way for LSU to win this game is picking the ball off. If they aren't able to do that, it's going to be a long night for this defense, like you mentioned. So, who steps up for this LSU team?
I think, other than Delane, I'm not going to let Ahmad Bro. He's a guy who, he's a guy who, he just said that he needs his team to be more firm in the gaps, and I feel like he's going to be the guy to really enforce that. He's good at making decisions, so I think it's going to be him.
I think West Weeks is crucial tomorrow, especially since his brother's not playing.
Yes.
You didn't get the greatest performance from Perk last week. In fact, it was one of his worst in an LSU uniform. So West Weeks has to step up. If, in the absence of Whit, Devon Keys is a good player, but he's not Whit Weeks. So that's when you need both West and Harold Perkins to go to that next level.
And I'm gonna piggyback on that a little bit. I'm gonna go with Harold Perkins. Okay. Harold Perkins did have one of his worst games in an LSU uniform this past week, and I think we are going to see that change. I think this is one of those games where your best players are going to be your best players. It's not going to be a game where we see Spears light up the field like we did against Florida. It's not going to be like one of those. I think it's a game where your top dogs are your top dogs. Yeah. And Harold Perkins is going to have to get to the quarterback. He's going to have to wrap up. I expect a couple tackles for loss. I expect a bunch of quarterback hurries. I expect a bunch of that out of number 7 tomorrow night.
At the end of the day, this game needs to be it's all 11 versus your 11, and all 11 can get the job done. And that's the mindset they need to have.
And back to Spears really quick. I think he could get an interception too.
He could if he's in the right, if he is in the game and he's in the right position for it. He has been very good this season for this LSU defense. So we kind of talked about, can LSU win this game with just their defense alone?
To simply put it, no. This is an A&M team that they average 36 points per game. They move the ball well. You're going to need to score points to win this game tomorrow. You might not have to score. You might have to get in the 40s like A&M Arkansas last week, but you have to score the ball. And your defense, I mean, when they've played, those ranked opponents, these dual threat quarterbacks, Vanderbilt, Ole Miss, now A&M, it's just hard to have them win you right. You have to help them out. Last week the offense did. They looked pretty good. Defense kind of let you down in some areas. But then when the defense got to stop, the offense let you down. So you have to play complementary football.
And one thing that that was kind of mentioned at the beginning of the season, or even just after the Ole Miss loss, it was kind of talked how, yes, a good defense, a great defense even, can win you games. They can't win you all of them. Mm-hmm. They're not going to be able to. They're not going to be able to stay on the field for 40 minutes and win you football games week in and week out. So no, I agree. They're not going to win it on their own, but they're going to play a huge part. And LSU is going to need to score points tomorrow, 28-35, something around that area. I don't necessarily think if your defense plays well, like you said, you're going to have to score 40 points, but I think you should go in and kind of with that mentality like, okay, we need to score every drive. And that's what LSU needs to go in with. But I think the defense not necessarily will win the game, but can give you a very, very good shot.
Yes.
Yeah. In my years of sports, I've always said defense wins games. And here, I agree with that. However, you do have a guy like Howell who's coming in, sacking left and right everybody. So that's where your offense has to come in and score points. So can defense win the game here? Yes, but it's crucial for offense to do what they have to do and, score.
Like my guy Cam Newton said earlier this morning on First Take, defense wins you championships, offense wins you games. So let's move on to some game day picks before we close out this show. We're going to start it out with number 15, Missouri, on the road against number 10, Vanderbilt. Who we got? We're going to start with you, Kai.
I've got Vanderbilt, it was pretty good this season, so that's my pick.
Yeah, well, Diego Pavia completely proved me wrong last week. I'm not going to doubt him again. I got the Commodores home tomorrow.
I got the Commodores as well. Diego Pavia is the real deal. He is that dude. He's got all the confidence in the world. He's going to take his pregame victory formation, practice that victory formation like he does every week. And I think when he does that, he shows that he has all the confidence in the world in his team. And he's a good player, and he's going to be able to run over this Missouri defense that I just don't necessarily think is that good. They struggled last week. And so, yeah, I think we all go Vandy, clean swipe on Vandy. Number 23, Illinois, on the road at Washington.
I've got Illinois. They do pretty good off of bye weeks. They're coming in strong. Even though Washington is favored at home, I think there can be an upset here.
I think this is a game where Washington can win.
Yes.
But I'm going to pick Illinois simply because Brett Bielema, he's my guy.
Well, we won't have a clean sweep on this one. I'm going to go Washington. I think they do get the upset at home. I think Illinois has kind of failed to prove to me that they are a top 25 team in this league. I think that Washington is good. I think that they're kind of slept on a little bit in areas, and I think this game at home is very winnable for this team. So, couple more. BYU, number 13 in the country, on the road, at Iowa State. Who do we have?
Tricky game for BYU, especially because it's on the road. They've looked good at times. They've looked kind of sloppy at times. They're coming off an emotional win. I think they might overlook Iowa State. I'm gonna pick the Cyclones tomorrow.
I'm going with BYU. They have a perfect season right now. They haven't lost a single game. They're the underdog here, but I think they can get the win.
For all my sports bettors out there, Iowa State is minus 135 on the money line, and every single dime happens to be on those boys from BYU. Give me the Cyclones. I think another game at home. It's going to be rowdy. It's going to be, this is a big game for Iowa State. And people forget this is a good ball club over at Iowa State. This is a good ball club. And I just, like some other teams I've mentioned, I don't really necessarily believe in BYU. I don't think that what they have is what they were last year. And I think this team at Iowa State can get it done. SEC test for you. Ole Miss, Oklahoma, number 8, number 13, really quickly. Who you got?
Oklahoma, this is a classic defensive versus offensive game. I think they've got it.
Give me the Sooners tomorrow night.
Clean swipe on Boomer Sooner. Would love to see that from a fan perspective. So now to the big one. Number 3, Texas A&M versus number 20, LSU. Kai, we're starting with you.
Okay, Texas is undefeated. Yep. We've seen how LSU plays. And although I love it, I'm going to have to go with Texas on this one. I think it's going to be a 34-27 game.
Close one.
Pains me to say it. I think A&M wins tomorrow night. I just don't see enough out of this LSU team.
I think LSU wins this game. And LSU wins this game if, from a defensive standpoint, you are able to hold them to a certain extent. I think you hold them to 20 points. You win the football game. You hold them to 20 points, you win the football game. You got to get in the end zone. But I think we see another game from Garrett Nussmeier where he continues that passing ability and he's able to kind of get the ball rolling for this offense. But that's going to do it for us here today. I just want to thank the entire LSU communication staff for allowing us to do this entire stadium, especially Michael Barnett and Kent Lowe. Thanks to Will and Kai for joining me as always. I'm Michael Poggi, and this has been the KLSU Tailgate Show.